Hello, everyone, and welcome to Week 10 of From the Stands College Football Game Day Show. There goes Tom's last finger, throwing him up every single week, but he's only got 10 as far as I know, so we'll see what he does for Week 11 next week. Joined again for the 10th time in a row, it is Mr. Andy Hopper, Mr. Tom Scavetta, of course, and we'll jump right into our weekly recap. Andy, we'll start with you. What was on your TV for Week 9? What caught your eye here?
First of all, please excuse my super nasally voice. I finally caught the vid. My 3-year streak is over, so this is my flu game, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking strap the fuck in. So Week 9, I think the biggest one for me was Kansas over Oklahoma. The Jayhawks get their first win against the Sooners since October 4th, 1997. I don't know about you guys, but I was not even 2 years old yet. Jason Bean, the backup quarterback for the Jayhawks, comes in, plays decent. He did have 218 yards, 2 interceptions on the day. Dylan Gabriel, a guy we were talking about as a potential Heisman dark horse, that campaign has gone down a little bit, boys. Only 171 yards to the air and an interception, and Oklahoma's first loss on this, or no, second loss, right? Or am I? Yeah, was that their first loss?
First loss.
First loss. Okay, yeah, sorry. It's right here in front of me. I can't read. COVID brain. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But Tawee Walker for the Sooners had an awesome day. 23 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Evan Neal had 25 carries, 112 and a touchdown for the Jayhawks. But awesome win for Kansas. The fans rushed the field. They took the goalpost. They threw it in the lake. Absolute scenes in Lawrence, boys.
Yeah, those were definitely some good ones. Tom, what was on your TV?
Not much, because I was attending America's largest cocktail party in Jacksonville. I got to go to the game, Florida, Georgia, or Georgia, Florida, I should say. Georgia's fan base embarrassing Florida attendance-wise. Man, if you've never been to a Georgia, Florida game, if you're listening and do that, it is so much fun. I had a blast. Vlad McConkey with the big breakout game for the Dogs. Great seats, by the way. Check out my Instagram if you want to find out where I was sitting for that one. Dejon Edwards is a workhorse, man. Graham Mertz was all over the place for Florida. He was not good. Parking was a shit show, but 10 out of 10 experience. Game, probably like 3 out of 10. Florida struck first and could not get things going. But I did catch a big night game. Oregon obliterated Utah. Actually, that was at 3:30, I believe. But Bo Nix and Troy Franklin struck often. Bryson Barnes threw 2 picks just a week after beating Caleb Williams. And then the big upset for me was Georgia Tech knocking off UNC. It's the second time Georgia Tech's had a big upset like this year. So my question is, does that hurt Drake May's draft stock? Because UNC still did score 42 points, and May did his thing. So I'm interested. This impacts them, but UNC definitely eliminated from any college football playoff consideration after that. Their second loss. So yeah, that's what stuck out to me. Go Dogs.
Have you seen the Georgia Tech pattern? They've won only in the even-numbered weeks, and so
what?
And they play Georgia week 12.
Oh, no.
No.
Surely they can't get away with that one.
Spoiler.
Andy. Look at Andy.
Oh, man.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
Yeah, for me, I think you guys covered most or all of these. Washington barely survived Stanford. That keeps them just outside of the top 4. They have struggled a little bit of recent, but they're still getting their wins behind their Heisman candidate. Like I said, Kansas takes down Oklahoma for their first loss. Big hit there for OU. They struggled against us, UCF a little bit. Again, just like Washington, they were getting the wins, but Kansas, they are ranked, so it's not the end of the world for them. But you want to go undefeated as long as possible when you're outside of the Big Ten and SEC, because you don't get that conference bump that the committee seems to give those 2 conferences. And then Arizona, another Arizona team, taking down yet another Pac-12 highly ranked team in Oregon State this time. So, I mean, I thought the Pac-12 was pretty solid. We got 2 solid ones, and the rest is business as usual. They are just eating each other up. Tom, like you said, UNC going down to Georgia Tech, stick a knife in them. That team
hand up, boys. COVID brain got me again. It's the odd numbered weeks. It's not the even numbered weeks.
So is
even number. So they play Georgia week 13, and they have Clemson next week, which would be week 11.
So Georgia is still not safe.
They're not. No, Georgia's not safe. Carolina was not safe. Miami, Florida was not safe. There was one other one. Yeah, no, sorry, but yeah, I fucked that one up. But yeah, Georgia's not safe. Look out, week 13.
Well, either way, I still love that that Georgia is on the hook possibly here. So that will wrap up our recap and move us into our first segment of the week. It is Italian Stallions. Oh no, sorry, we were going with What do we want to start with here? The rankings or Italian Stallions? I'll let you guys pick.
Let's do the Stallions.
Stallions, it is more of a fun one, so we'll rip through this one. We're going tier list of maybe the most ridiculous college football story in a long time. These are just ridiculous to read here, but we have our tier list here. We're going to take 2 each from 6 of the most ridiculous stories. This is just what's come out so far. We said that this is getting crazier by the hour. As the week has gone on since last show, it has definitely gotten crazier. And we have our 6 situations here that the boys will rank. We have, first up, Mr. Stalions using his own name to buy tickets. Second up, we have the 600-plus page Michigan manifesto. A little bit crazy on that one. Michigan not doing well with manifestos being written on their campus. Third up, we have filming a game from his phone, the entirety of the game from right behind the stands. That did not go unnoticed. He's been caught on security camera. Fourth, we have it is being reported that he bought a house as close as he could to the local airport, rented that out as an Airbnb, in order to use that money to jump on flights to attend these away games to spy on these teams. Fifth, we have the obviously amazing disguise here of the sunglasses with camera, of course, and definitely very real-looking goatee. And then lastly here, we have Mr. Stalions adding to his LinkedIn profile, in case you wanted to recruit him and his spying abilities, that he has the ability to identify the opponent's most likely course of action and most dangerous course of action. I wonder why. Andy, we'll start with you. Pick from the pack and put it on the tier list where you like.
I mean, it's got to be the Michigan manifesto is S tier. It's 600 pages. Like I mean, this guy is just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, a manifesto is never. You never want to hear that word. I guess we'll say this is probably.
Yeah, thank God this is a manifesto about the Michigan football program,
Yeah.
right? We're lucky that it is about the Michigan football program.
Certainly one of the safer manifestos of our time. Tom, you're up next. Pick one of the Italian Stallions here and place it somewhere on our tier list.
Yeah, filming a whole game from the stands that's definitely lowest tier. I mean, that's just dumb. It's really, really dumb. I'm gonna go E tier with that one. You can easily get caught. E for easy. Fans are all over the stadium. This is gonna sound very vanilla, but people will get suspicious really, really quick when you're doing that. That's kind of just like trying to stick out in a bunch of like, what am I trying to say? Like a pot of flowers. You're like that one rose that's in there, and it's not a good look. Try to blend in with the rest of the crayons next time, Mr. Stalions, and be a little bit more secretive if you're going to do that, because sometimes people think reverse psychology. Make it super obvious and act as if you belong, so they don't question you.
Right.
That could have been his thinking there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with.
That's bad.
I'm gonna go with one of a similar vein where you would think you would not want to be so obvious, but it's. I don't even know what to say about this one. It's the goatee sunglasses combo.
Yeah.
I mean, just the pictures alone, to basically tell the story. You could show this to anyone and they'd be like, he's guilty. Goatee does not look real at all. The sunglasses make him look like, a wannabe FBI agent. And of course, for those who don't know, if you've seen these zoomed in pictures, and I think there's a video now as well, they are these Snapchat or Facebook glasses that have the camera and the light, and you can see him on film turning it on to film the plays and the call signs on the CMU sideline. I'm going to put it at B tier. It's an incredible story, but lack of execution on the costume. I think he needs to get a better hair guy, for that goatee, and maybe less subtly activate a camera on your sunglasses there, my guy. Andy, you're up next. What's your second one here?
I'll say I'm between 2 right now. They're just fucking fun.
They're all so
This
ridiculous.
whole story is just so bizarre, man. I'll say A tier, buying a home near an airport to rent out as an Airbnb, that's sleeping in his car so he could use that money to buy tickets to the game. This guy's the most dedicated person I've ever heard of to like making a fucking football program successful. Also, that's kind of just a smart business decision. Like, I'm sure he was making a pretty decent amount of money, like specifically for that, and then just being a big enough psychopath to be all right with sleeping in your car to win more football games. Like, he's just the ultimate football guy, I think, at the end of the day. He just loves ball. He just wants to win. But yeah, this one, I'll put that at A tier, just because it's like, I'm surely he made more than enough to just cover tickets, but he was buying a lot of tickets. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that one's up in the air. I think we'll need to check his financial statements. I feel like somehow this kid probably did put himself in the hole still, even with the Airbnb.
Right.
Tom, you're up next. We got two left: the buying tickets in his own name and the LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I mean, buying tickets with your own name, that's just something else. This all coincides to him just maybe being super sneaky, but at the same time having a few screws loose. So this really doesn't make sense. I'm gonna throw this one in C tier because technically anybody can buy a ticket to a game. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, people do it all the time. We have big celebrities now attending football games all the time. So yeah, I just don't know if I like this too much for him. This guy, I mean, I don't happen with Michigan in the long run because right now we'll get to this in a minute, but Michigan's looking good as far as CFP rankings go. So you just hope this guy Connor Stalions, hopefully an NCAA or the university doesn't hammer down on the football team too soon for their case. But yeah, Connor Stalions wants his name to be remembered, guys. He wants his name in football history, whether it be in a good manner or a not so good manner. Print out every single one of his tickets and put them in like a glass case of something just to show them out one day. Remember this guy, fall 2023, Connor Stalions.
All right, and that leaves the last one here is the LinkedIn profile. We got a good spread here. Everything's missing but D, but I do think this is above D tier. I think I'm going to put this also in B tier. I'm going double Bs here. Again, for this one, for those who did not hear, in his skills section on his resume, he had that he's good at identifying the opponent's most likely course of action and most dangerous course of action. I mean, you think you are recording everything that is going on every second of every football game of every opponent. So I would hope, at the very least, that you know what they're going to do and what the most likely course of action is. I'm putting it B tier because it's really hilarious. But if he, well, I got 2 points here. The first is that told a Michigan guy, why does he need a resume in the first place? Clearly, he was only ever going to work at Michigan. The guy clearly wanted to be a god for the Wolverines. And secondly, even say he has a fallout, takes a knock on the head and starts to hate Michigan football, wants to move to another team in some alternate reality here. If a coach is looking at this, it basically implies, without being smoking gun, that he was spying on everyone. I don't know if you could word that any more sketchily, other than just saying, I spy on opponents, I'll do it for you, hire me. So I'm putting B tier here because he could have been a little bit more subtle, but it is hilarious nonetheless. So that'll wrap up the ever-evolving story of Mr. Italian Stallion, Connor Stalions, and his tier list. And move us on to our initial CFP ranking reactions. Week 10, we had our first playoff rankings from the committee. We're going to talk about some winners, some losers, some surprises, what we thought of this first ranking here. It's always a bit of a wild card. Andy, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts? Any winners, specific losers, surprises? What do you like or didn't like here?
I think at first I was kind of surprised Ohio State was number one, and then after looking at the resumes, they unfortunately do have the best resume at the moment. With their wins over Penn State and Notre Dame. We know Georgia's really good. We know Michigan's really good. They ain't played nobody, Paul. Florida State, I guess I was kind of surprised to see them at the 4th spot. I really think Washington's a better team than them. I think Oregon's actually better than them too. I think Air Force being at 25, it's kind of a little disrespectful. Apparently the committee hates the troops, even though I don't think they've played anybody that's ranked too. So they're hurting on their strength of schedule there, but that's, I don't know, but I think, but I'm not like mad at it. You know what I mean? There's nothing on here that I think is like super egregious.
Right. Yeah, I've heard other people bring up the Air Force thing as well. I think the one thing that they either mentioned on the ranking show or, the caveat that all the journalists were picking out is that Air Force, especially against Tulane, because Tulane already has a loss, Air Force has less wins against FBS opponents who have a winning record. So, yeah, their strength of schedule, they're not doing too hot right now. And they play Army this week, so that'll be another losing record team, even if they get the win. Tom, what's your take on this top 25 or this top 4 here for you for the first ranking of the season?
Yeah, so I'm going to bounce around the top 10 quickly here. Number 1, Ohio State, too high. But Michigan, to be fair, has not played anybody, and Georgia almost lost to Auburn. So the Buckeyes do have good wins over Notre Dame and Penn State. Their only tough game left is at Michigan. I would have put Ohio State at number 3 in mine, but to each their own. Georgia. I actually think they got Georgia right here at number 2. Their best win is Kentucky right now. They had an upset scare at Auburn. Their upcoming schedule, Missouri. They should win that, despite them being ranked number 12. Ole Miss. the SC championship game. They'll be number one if they win out and Ohio State wins out as well. There's no question about that. I think they jump them if both teams end up undefeated. Due to strength of schedule, they have 3 ranked teams coming up in the SEC title game. Michigan, I think they're too low. I'd have them at number 1 right now, as crazy as that might sound with all this stuff going on. They have not allowed more than 10 points in any game this season. To be fair, they have not played anybody. Rutgers and UNLV are their best wins right now. Their upcoming schedule: Purdue, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. The reason why I'd have Michigan at number 1 is J.J. McCarthy. It's simple. J.J. McCarthy, in my opinion, is I guess you'd call him my front runner for the Heisman candidate if I was deciding. His eyes are just lasers. He's really, really good throwing the football. Texas is above Oklahoma by 2 spots despite losing to them. Why? Well, that's interesting because I actually agree with this, because Oklahoma lost to Kansas and had an upset scare against UCF. So I don't blame the committee for putting Texas over Oklahoma. Lastly, the one change that I think I would make past the top 5, Penn State. I would have Penn State over both Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Their only loss was to Ohio State, who is the number 1 team. So if you're ranking Ohio State number 1, you should have Penn State in the top 10 as well. That's just my opinion there.
All right. Were you doing outside of the top 10, or that was? I guess Penn State is number 11, so that qualifies.
Ha, got your ass.
All right. No, I don't have much outside of the top 10 anyways. I just thought you were going lower down the order here. For mine, yeah, I'll keep it quick. We shouldn't put in too much into this first one. As always, I think the most interesting stat that I found is that in 8 of the 9 previous seasons that we've had the playoff here, 15 of the 32 teams that were top 4 in the initial ranking do not make the playoff semifinal. So I guess you're in the danger zone if you're any of those top 4, because that's about 50%. When I look at those, Tom, you're pretty high in Michigan, but for me, I think they're in that 50% that's, in that 50% that doesn't make it because of the strength of schedule. But I'll start at number 1 here, and that is Ohio State. They're, I think, my winner out of this initial ranking, because I don't think they expected maybe to be number 1. I don't think a lot of people expected them to be number 1, but they get an excellent 2-spot bump up in the rankings from the AP poll. To me, I don't think that's good enough to get a free loss on your resume. Like, if they have a decently bad loss, they could still drop out of the top 4. But it's good for maybe like 2/3 of a free loss to put them like still right on the edge, despite who they lose to. I think, unless it's like a 49-0 blowout to the worst team left on their schedule. But I don't think anyone thinks that'll happen. But yeah, they get to jump. They get to jump Michigan and Georgia. So they got that for free. It's because of their schedule, obviously, with the 2 top 15 wins against Penn State and Tom's Notre Dame. And yeah, I mean, Penn State I'll also throw on there. I agree they should be over Oklahoma and Ole Miss, but I'll still consider them a winner here because you could argue that without that game, or had they played Ohio State later, they could be up there in the top 4. So their only losses to the team that just popped over, who most people think is number 1 in Georgia in the committee's eyes. So I think they're sitting pretty if they run the table, and their only losses to Ohio State here. My surprise is Michigan at number 3. I'm going opposite of Tom. I think they should be lower. I'm putting them at number 5 on mine, behind Florida State and Washington. I would swap those 2 as well, Tom. But they have by far the weakest schedule in the top. I think you go down as far as number 10, honestly, the weakest schedule. They are 112th. There's only 133 FBS teams, so they're right there with James Madison in terms of strength of schedule. Yeah, and with the current Stalions scandal, I think the committee had a freebie to drop them down to number 5 and not have to explain themselves. They could have been like, listen, they might be cheating. It sounds like they're cheating. People can't complain much. And most importantly, the committee likes to talk about, what have you done? Prove it on the field. Michigan, from here on out, has the number 1 remaining strength of schedule. So why do you need to put them at 3 right now? If they win with the hardest schedule remaining for the rest of the season, they're obviously going to be there in the top 2 anyways. So for me, that was a bit of an odd one. And then quickly, my loser is Oklahoma. It's a bit of a weird one because I agree Penn State is probably better than them, but also every other situation where there was a head-to-head, the team that won that head-to-head is 1 spot above the losing team. So outside of the Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma trio you have there, you get the head-to-heads of Washington beats Oregon, they're 1 spot over Oregon. Texas beat Alabama, they're 1 spot over Alabama. Utah beat UCLA, they're 1 spot over UCLA. So Oklahoma's probably feeling a little bit hard done by this one by being the worst of the three here, despite their only loss being to a ranked team. So a bit of a weird one, but again, I agree. This is not a bad ranking. I'm completely okay with it. And that will move us into our weekly parlay party. Still no winners on the board. We're going to will it into existence. I can feel it. Andy, we're starting with you. Give us your week 10 parlay.
1 second. Let me pull it up here. Okay. Sorry. All right. So this is kind of chalky. It's 4 favorites. It's all 11 o'clock games. So we get our misery out early. So 4 favorites. I need to see one go through. And then surely I'll go 3-1 or I'll hit none of them at all. So I'm starting off Florida -4.5. Arkansas sucks. That's my logic there. Nebraska -3. Michigan State is not good. Nebraska has actually not looked that bad the past couple weeks. Ole Miss -3 against Texas A&M. I just think they're better than I think they are more than 3 points better than Texas A&M. I don't trust Texas A&M at all. And then Tommy Boy, Notre Dame -3 at Clemson. I think it's kind of funny. This is an 11 o'clock game. It feels like it should be like a night game or more of a marquee matchup, but I think your Irish get it done. Dabo's a clown. Shout out Tyler from Spartanburg. But yeah, that's my parlay. I've got a 50% boost on FanDuel. They've been very nice and generous with those this year every weekend when they're taking my $10. So without the boost, it's plus 1,200, 1224. So it'd be 10 to win 122 and 44 cents. If you are lucky enough to get the 50% boost, 10 to win 183.68. So we'll know at about 3 o'clock if we win or if we continue our streak of being stinky poo-poo losers. So yeah, that's my parlay.
And for those of you wondering about the 11 a.m. games, Andy is in a fancy pants time zone there that we like to call the Central Time Zone.
The best time zone.
It is in the Central up there in Illinois. So those are your noon games for those on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, Pac-12 territory, I don't know what time it is where you guys live. Do you guys even have time zones over there? All right, Tom, we'll move on to
9
you.
9 a.m. start.
Yeah, you got to wake up early for those. Tom, give us your parlay.
So first up, Texas -2.5 against Kansas State. Clocks in at -164. I like Quinn Ewers to get some good lickings at home. Jonathan Brooks as well. Xavier Worthy.
Isn't it the backup starting for Texas?
Have they?
Isn't it Malik Murphy?
I don't think it's official, but they're leaning that way. It seems like.
No idea, but I read Ewers. Let me just double check that. I'll go down the rest of the list while we're clarifying that.
My bad.
Notre Dame -3 over Clemson, similar to Andy here. I like this one. I think Sam Hartman will have a bounce back game. Third leg will be Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I'm taking the over at 61.5. -118. Those teams score a lot of points. I don't feel comfortable necessarily taking spread, although Oklahoma has dominated this rivalry. By the way, I'm seeing a report here from Fox Sports saying Malik Murphy waited his turn to lead Texas, and now he's ready to dance. Ooh. So this could be a legit thing here, as Quinn Ewers is weak with a injury to his throwing shoulder. So thank you, Andy, for that correction. I still like Texas -2.5, despite the fact at home. Washington, USC. I sold some points here, but I'm going over 72.5. No defense will be played. Michael Penix will outschool Caleb Williams, but I do think that a lot of points are scored here, -172. Just seeing what Penix did last week, 370 yards and 4 touchdowns. Caleb Williams, well over 300 yards as well. Both of those quarterbacks will light it up. And finally, this has been a common one lately, Arizona money line +116. Yes, this is a shot at Dante Moore for not coming to Notre Dame and choosing UCLA instead, a poverty school compared to Notre Dame. +116 for Arizona at home. Screw UCLA, screw Chip Kelly. I like Arizona in an upset. This clocks in at +1822, or a 50% boost for +2734, $10 for $273. So we'll see. It's 5 legs. I think there's some interesting ones I threw in here, but I was in Florida for a week, so I could not bet from Thursday up until today. Just flew back up today, so excited to get that one in there.
Yeah, Florida is known for having just about everything crazy, but apparently we're not responsible enough to sports bet. So I apologize on behalf of my stake, Tom.
Insane.
It really is. And that'll bring up my parlay here. It is a 5-teamer, and I have barely squeaked out the minimum requirement of plus 1,000 because I want to get a win on the board. If you get a win, you're basically paid off for the season here. So I'm hoping we all at least knock out one at that plus 1,000 requirement. Let me read them off here. Texas minus 2.5 versus Kansas State. I also sold some points here. Kansas State is the team that loves to upset these highly ranked teams, but this is the best Texas team we've seen in a while. They looked shaky in a few games, but I think they can beat Kansas State by a field goal. Wisconsin, don't love this one, but I needed something to get over the line here. Sold a few points, minus 6.5 over Indiana. They screwed me against Iowa. That should have been an easy game. Basically scored negative points with negative offense and blew that one for me. So I feel like they'll probably just do it again here out of spite. But yeah, minus 6.5, a touchdown over Indiana. Then I have maybe the most surprising one, but it is a lot of points here. Missouri plus 17.5 at Georgia. Last year was the year of parity where everyone looked at the top looked kind of even but good, with Georgia as like a 1A standout. But I think this year it's not even parity. It's just that everyone is kind of at the high level of middling in the top like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. And I think that includes Georgia. They've looked a little better in the last couple weeks, but I still think there's some holes there. 17.5 points is a lot for a very good Missouri team right now. So just give me all those points. I'm going to eat them up. Penn State minus 7 at Maryland. Talia looks really good there for Maryland. They have a pretty solid offense. But Penn State is looking at that ranking and realizing that they are high enough still to be able to climb into that playoff spot. So they need to win and they need to dominate. I think one touchdown is safe enough here. And then another sketchy one, but I had to get myself over the line. Northwestern is very bad. I think Iowa can beat them by 1 point. Iowa minus 1 at Northwestern. I really took a deep look at the over-under here, but it was just so low. I thought something crazy will happen.
29.5.
Yeah.
Lowest of all time.
I thought about even just selling some points to up to, I think it went up to like 35 or 34. But for some reason, I feel like one of the like Iowa could just break off with like a 500 rushing yard game that we've seen in the past and just score like 30 points themselves. So I'm taking Iowa minus 1. That is a total of plus 1,018, $10 to win, 111.87. Bit of a cheap move by myself to go barely over the edge there, but you got to take a win when you can get them every once in a while. So hopefully we do, and that'll lead us into our last segment of the week. It is, of course, the Shots and Chasers, the games of the week, starting at noon. We have Texas, who is injured. They got kids in the hospital by the name of Quinn Ewers, their starting quarterback. Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. Because of you having them on your card and the QB situation here, you got them on your card as a win, but do you really think they take down Kansas State here with their backup QB?
I do. I do, because they've won the last 6 matchups. They haven't lost to Kansas State in Austin since 2011. I mean, you still have Jonathan Brooks on the backfield with 7 touchdowns, over 900 yards. C.J. Baxter is a solid complementary back. And whoever plays quarterback will have some great options at receiver. Xavier Worthy, as I mentioned, every time Texas is on the card, Worthy is worthy of the spotlight. Adonai Mitchell, 7 touchdown receptions on the season, and their defense is really, really good. They've been improving throughout the course of the season. Will Howard, a guy who's a dual threat. I like him a lot. DJ Giddens and Treshaun Ward on the ground, really solid in the run game. Receiving wise, they don't have too much outside of Phillip Brooks and tight end Ben Sinnott. Sinnott viewed as primarily receiving numbers. For K-State, their defense needs to cause a couple of turnovers. They need to blitz and get pressure on the quarterback in this game. Khalid Duke leads the team with 5 sacks. Nate Matlock not far behind with 4. I like Texas in this one just due to the fact that they're home and they've won the last 6 matchups. So what have you done for me lately? Texas answers the bell here.
All right, Andy.
So yeah, Malik Murphy got in the game last week and looked okay. Wasn't anything super crazy, but he was a guy when he got onto campus that, some Texas fans thought, he might be even more talented than Quinn Ewers. Then obviously you have Arch Manning that's thrown into the equation here as well, but looks like it'll be Malik Murphy on Saturday. I could be wrong on that, but it seems like that's what it's trending towards. Kansas State comes into the game on a 3-game winning streak. They're number 23 in the nation. Like Tom said, it's been a while since they've won in Austin. Will Howard's been pretty good for them at quarterback so far this year. Both offenses here are averaging 400 plus yards. 450 plus yards per game. It's 2 top 25 offenses. hoping for a lot of points. I'll give Texas the slight edge here because they're at home, even with the backup quarterback. So I think Texas wins a tight one.
Yeah, interesting matchup here. As always, when you have a Kansas State team that's just in the bottom of the rankings, very dangerous. But Texas comes in, debuts as the second best one-loss team here, only behind Oregon. It has to play, like I said, a really scrappy Kansas State team. They love to play the spoiler here. They love being in this position. It's sort of a no holds bar, nothing to lose type of situation. And they thrive in it somehow. But yeah, Kansas State's defense, absolute heater the last 2 weeks, giving up just 3 combined points. That is against TCU and Houston. And the offense on the other side of the ball went and scored 41 points in each of those games. So both sides of the ball are clicking there for the Wildcats. Texas, obviously better than both of those teams. I don't think that really needs to be said. But they also outpaced Kansas State in just about every skill position, especially on offense. Yeah, Malik Murphy is a step down from Ewers, but I still think he's from what we've seen so far in the limited action, at least on par with Will Howard. So I don't think it's a huge loss there. You've got guys that can make up for it. Xavier Worthy, the obvious man that Kansas State needs to watch, but he's equally dangerous, not just a wide receiver, but as a return man, because he returns their punts, and he got his first punt return touchdown last week, 74-yarder. So they need to keep their eyes on him on both sides of the ball there. Kansas State, the Wildcats, they've been using 2 quarterbacks, Will Howard for the throwing, Avery Johnson for the running. It doesn't always work out when you can when you're telegraphing the skill set of each QB. When Johnson's in there, it's going to be pretty obvious that he's going to be, looking for the run. But it adds a little interesting dynamic here that it really makes this game closer than I would like, especially since Texas is on my card as well there in the parlay. But I mean, Texas, they're very disciplined. They look very good. Sarkisian has them running some of the best football we've seen in Texas for a year. So I'm going with the Longhorns here as well. Moving into the chaser for our noon slot, we have Air Force taking on Army. We love the troops here, despite the committee hating them, clearly. Air Force ranked at number 25, taking on 2-6 Army. Andy, who do you have here?
I think this will be a big one for Air Force. So if you guys like passing and opening up the field, really spreading it out, this is not the game for you, folks. Air Force averaging 81 pass yards per game to Army's 132, but the Air Force 300 yards per game on the ground. They're 8-0. They're first in the Mountain West. Army comes in the game at 2-6. They've seen better days in this football program. I think Air Force wins, and I don't think it's close.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, I think Air Force is going to win here as well. The Falcons are undefeated and ranked. Army has that really bad loss to UMass, which is scary. We know that Zach Larrier is the driving force of the Falcons offense with 6 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing. I really like Emmanuel Michel on the ground with those 9 touchdowns too. John Lee Eldridge is a change of pace back for them in the backfield, and their defense is not so bad. Outside of Army, I can't name one skilled player out of Bryson Daly that I think will have an impact on this game.
All right. Tell us what you really think.
All due respect to Army, but I think Air Force pulls this one out convincingly. Air Force wins.
Yeah, I'm going Air Force as well. Off to an 8-0 start for the first time since 1985. So it's been a while, but they are churning out the wins here and looking pretty good doing it. Falcons lead the nation on the ground. As Andy said, you're not going to see much throwing, so that plays a part. They're averaging 300.4 yards per game in the rush. The last 5 meetings between these two teams have been 1-score games, though, and that is because, as we've seen many a time, these possessions take upwards of 7, 8, 10, sometimes 15 minutes because they just run down the clock with all these runnings. And now we have the clock situation where you don't stop the clock on a first down until the final 2 minutes of each half. So we might see like 8 total offensive possessions in this game if we're being realistic here. This could be very low scoring, and that might help keep Army in it. But Air Force is just the far better team. The only thing I'll add here is that their offense has outscored teams 131 to 36 after halftime. So they finish strong. Even if they go down early here against a struggling Army, I think they can make it up. They've got the willpower. Clearly their coach gets them ready, riled up after the half, keeps them running. So I'm going with the Falcons as well. Moving into 3:30, we have Georgia, who slid down the rankings as far as the committee goes, taking on a highly ranked Missouri, who's looking good so far this season. Andy, who do you like here?
I don't know. I kind of was surprised to see this line at 15.5. Felt like a lot of points, and I feel like Missouri has a chance to go into Athens and win this game. They're feeling very, very frisky. If you're the Tigers, you come in at 7-1. When was the last time Missouri was this good? What the fuck do you have to lose? Play with a chip on your shoulder. Nobody thinks you're going to, except for this guy right here. I'm taking Missouri to upset Georgia this week, boys.
Oh,
Mark it on your calendars, and if I lose, don't at me. I've got COVID.
I love the safe haven you just built for yourself there. Tom, wow, big upset call there from Andy. Do you agree, or are you going with the dogs here?
Well, let me say this: UGA leads the all-time series 11-1. Missouri is on 2 weeks rest, so they do have that going for them. I like Brady Cook. I think he's a decent quarterback. He slings the ball around nicely. Cody Schrader, solid running back too. North-South guy, over 800 yards and 9 touchdowns. Luther Burden the third, really solid wide receiver who's a great X, and then Theo Weiss. They do have some dangerous secondary players, 10 passes defended and 4 picks for Chris Abrams Strain, and then Johnny Walker and Darius Robinson could cause problems for guys like Cedric Van Pran and Tate Ratledge if they're able to offset their combo blocks at the first level. The Tigers did beat Kansas State at home, and they beat Kentucky on the road by 17, which is what I think Andy's on to here. This makes this a juicy matchup, but there is no Brock Bowers for Georgia this week once again. Carson Beck, really good, promising quarterback. Dijon Edwards, 8 touchdowns. He looked really good in the cocktail party game last week. Dominic Lovett is coming on. Marcus Rosemead Jackson making plays. Lad McConkey had a breakout game. He burnt that Florida secondary. And Oscar Delp is a guy who's developing into that starting tight end next year for Georgia. He has 2 touchdowns already. The secondary for Georgia's defense is Malachi Starks, Kamari Lassiter, and Javon Bullard are both solid players as well. Their weakness, I wouldn't really say it's much of a weakness, but it's definitely a bit not up to par compared to previous years, obviously, with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, you name it. It's their front seven. Jamon Dumas Johnson does his thing. But outside of that, there are some concerns, right? Nazir Stackhouse and those guys up front need to do a better job of getting to the quarterback, stopping the run. I'm picking Georgia here. They're 15.5-point favorites for a reason. I did see them live in person last week, and I was very impressed with what I saw. Florida was out of the game by the first half of the third quarter. So I like the dogs here.
Yeah, it's always telling when you can see the team actually in person, especially when it's a team that we've all been questioning when they have some questionable results here. Yeah, with Bowers sidelined here, Tom, I know you're absolutely gutted by that. Probably the best tight end in all of college football. Carson Beck, this is his showcase opportunity because Florida, yeah, it's a rivalry, but Florida's been wishy-washy all season. This is a very good Missouri team. He needs to show up because, his best guy, his best weapon is now gone. He's got to put more of the load on his own back here. There's a lot of streaks on the line here for Georgia, and I feel like I'm jinxing it just by saying I'm 25-game win streak, 35 consecutive regular season wins, and 23 home game winning streak. But yeah, I'll say this, because this is another one where I go last, and I think I've been turned. And he's dug his paws in there, and he's got me by the soul here, because I almost put Missouri just straight up as my big upset for my parlay before I decided against it. But I really think they have a chance here to win this game. They look really good. And Georgia, this is the worst we've seen them in 3 years, so why not? Why not? Tigers in the red zone, maybe my favorite stat in this game, 97.1% success rate in the red zone. That is the best in the nation. This team gets there, and they do it methodically. No stupid plays. The turnovers in the red zone almost non-existent. They go there, they get in the red zone, and they execute. If they need to kick a field goal, they're not doing anything stupid. You put the points on the board, and then you let your defense go do the rest of the work. So that is super efficient. You guys know I love that kind of stuff. But they're going up against a Georgia team that's 7th in scoring defense, allowing just 14.8 points per game. But this is one of the best offenses that are going to face this year, Georgia in the Tigers. So Tigers scored 30 or more points in 6 straight games, averaging 470 yards per game in the last 5 on offense. So you know what? Andy has flipped me here. I love those offensive numbers. I think it's enough to get an upset here, boys. I as well am going to ride with the Tigers here on the road. And that'll move us into another solid matchup here. 3:30. I'm loving this time slot here. It's definitely a double TV action. We have Bedlam, Oklahoma State versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma scraping out a number 9 ranking despite losing to Kansas. Andy, we'll start with you. Who's winning this one?
I actually think this deserves a 7 o'clock time slot. This is the last Bedlam we're going to get for quite a while, and we're getting robbed of that dark fucking Oklahoma sky. But nevertheless, Oklahoma State comes in feeling really, really good about themselves. They've won 4 straight. That includes wins over Kansas State, Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati. I know the last 2 aren't as impressive, but getting it done back-to-back weeks versus the Kansas schools, I'll give them some praise for that. So they come in at 6-2. They appear in the rankings here. Oklahoma obviously coming off a loss. They've got that bad taste in their mouth. They're going to need to have a bounce-back game from Gabriel here. I think there's going to be a lot of juice for this one, being the last time these 2 teams are going to play each other for quite some time. Oklahoma State, I give them a slight edge because they're at home. But, oh, man, I just think Oklahoma comes in too pissed off and gets the win here. I think they come out by it's whoever has the ball last in this game is going to win and take the over because that's just mandatory at every Bedlam game. So I'll take the Sooners to win, but I think it's going to be really tight.
Yeah, that does seem par for the course for a Bedlam game. Tom, who are you taking here?
This game has a chess match written all over it. I think we all could have seen an Oklahoma loss coming after the way they performed against UCF and had to come back to just sneak that one away. Dylan Gabriel did not look good last week. He exited the Heisman room. Not throw a touchdown, 1 interception, but he still had a very good season. Walker and Major, solid backs in the backfield. They have 3 receivers over 400 yards on the season. One of them has 8 touchdowns. I still like what Billy Bowman Jr. and Key Lawrence bring to the defense with Danny Stutzman on that second level. I believe Alan Bowman is still starting for the Cowboys. So when I look at this, I see a team that is run first with Ollie Gordon II. Ollie Gordon II is a stretch type of running back, off tackle. He's going to get players to miss in open space. So the Sooners' run defense must be ready to offset and absorb that. Keep an eye on Brennan Presley in the red zone. He's a good target. Cameron Epps is a ball hawk in the secondary for them. So they have some good players all around the board. Nick Martin, Colin Oliver, you name it. But here's the key stat for me. Oklahoma has won 17 of the. So with that being said, I will take the Sooners on the road.
Yeah, this is always such an interesting matchup, and it is a shame it's going to be the last one, at least for now, that we're going to see. Oklahoma State here. We've talked about Oklahoma for a few, 3 of the last 4 weeks, I believe, in the games of the week. But Oklahoma State here, they're known for their running game. In the past, Chuba Hubbard, the most recent dangerous weapon they have, and now he's replaced by, like you said, Ollie Gordon, the nation's leading rusher with over 1,000 yards already, 858 from the line of scrimmage the past 30 weeks, and has rushed for 100 yards in 5 straight games. You love to see that kind of consistency. It's really going to put Oklahoma's defense on their heels, especially because their number one defender there, at least to me, on Oklahoma, Danny Stutzman, he's nursing a knee injury, so they're not sure if he's going to play. So he's one of my favorite linebackers in college football right now. He was the first, this is super notable, first defensive player on the YouTube thumbnails this year for me. So that is a notable stat that we'll probably see in the College Football Hall of Fame one day. But no, that's not an injury you want to have. You really hope that he is playing if you're Oklahoma, because you don't want any more holes. He leads the Sooners in tackles, solo tackles, and tackles for loss. So without him, I mean, they could be in a lot of trouble, not even just from that Ollie Gordon running game. Oklahoma State also has a new transfer as a weapon at wide receiver when Ollie Gordon does open up that throw game for them. Division III last year, but he was an All-American. Cowboys scooped him up. He had 5 catches for 149 yards last week in his debut, their win against Cincinnati. I agree with Andy. This is like a last possession type of game here. So, I don't know. Oklahoma State is at home, so typically you would just give them the edge, but I don't know. I can't go against my man Dylan Gabriel here. I think they squeak out a win in a really fun game to watch. This will definitely be on for me, but I'm going with the Sooners. Alabama versus LSU, another classic. We got a good card after 2 weeks in a row of some bad ones. Andy, who are you taking in this one?
So Jaden Daniels looking to become the first quarterback since Drew Brees to beat Nick Saban back-to-back years. It's all the way back to when Saban was at Michigan State, which is absolutely insane. LSU, they're coming in. Their offense has been absolutely electric this year. 562 yards of total offense per game, 47 points. They've been lighting everybody up. Can this Alabama defense slow them down? It's an Alabama defense that's allowing just a shade over 330 yards a game, but keeping their opponents out of the end zone, only allowing 16.5 points. Alabama at home, I give them the slight advantage here, but give me the Tigers.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, this game is going to be the game that I'll have on at night, most likely. I don't want to watch a game where 300 points are scored with no defense. I want to watch typical SEC football on a Saturday night, okay? Notre Dame will be done early on Saturday. So Alabama is coming off the bye, right? We all know Georgia will make the SEC title game, considering they take care of business. But this could be the clincher for the SEC West. This really could. I mean, you have Jalen Milroe for Alabama, who's improved throughout the course of the season. Jace McClellan in the backfield for them. Dallas Turner, possibly a top 5 draft pick with 8 sacks on the season. Chris Braswell's not double Turner because of the presence that Braswell brings on the opposite end with 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. LSU's offense does score a lot of points. Jaden Daniels is a Heisman candidate. Right now, he's looked really good. He's great on the ground as well. Notre Dame transfer Logan Diggs in the backfield, 600 yards and 6 scores. And how about Malik Neighbors, guys? I mean, we just talk about this guy like he's a top 5 receiver in the nation this year, and that's all because what Brian Kelly has instilled in this Tigers offense, the confidence he trusts in his players. Brian Thomas Jr. with 11 touchdowns on the season. When your 2 star receivers have 20 total combined touchdowns, I mean, it makes you look really good. Ask guys like Michael Floyd, Golden Tate, etc., former receivers that Brian Kelly coached. Defensively, they got some players too. Harold Perkins Jr., Makai Wingo. This is a tough one. I want to do this, but I'm rolling with Alabama on this one at home. I know I just talked up LSU a lot, but the big games with Brian Kelly, just something goes wrong. I don't see LSU doing it 2 years in a row. They did it last year. I did predict it last year. I'm not going to predict it this year. I'm going the other way around this time.
Yeah, well, I'm repping. I realize my camera's a little too high, but I am repping the LSU polo this week. I have to bring it out for these games. Support the boys. With how many friends I had that went there, that was like the second school over FSU, in fact, which was kind of within driving distance. But again, I called FSU into the playoffs, so FSU fans, you can put down the pitchforks. I still show you guys some love as well. As far as the game goes, yeah, the hardest thing for me is that LSU just lost some really, really good players. Obviously, Greg Brooks has been out for the season, but they also now just lose Zy Alexander. I believe it was just last week. He started every single game so far in the season. You don't want to lose players right before a big matchup like this and have them replaced with new guys who don't get much action. Because even though Alabama has struggled a little bit, they polished up their game these last couple weeks, and they look like they're almost back in expected Nick Saban territory here. Speaking of that, Milroe, we had questions about him. The deep ball, he's looking a little better. His throws are looking a little better, and that kind of helps when you have someone like Jermaine Burton on the other side to catch those balls. So that could be a bigger threat than I would have thought it would have been 3 weeks ago when we were looking into this matchup down the line. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, just a huge talent here on the other side of the ball. Leads the nation in total offense with 387 yards, I should say, per game, and also leads the nation in passing touchdowns with 25. So I think he definitely has the edge here, but he's also got his issues when he's forced out of the pocket. So I mean, he's no longer a Heisman candidate. We've seen the holes in him, but again, I still think I put him a little bit over Milroe. Defensive side of the ball, you guys mentioned Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. They're the league's top pass rushing duo, and they're going to give Daniels a lot of trouble here. So if they can force him to run around, again, I think they're going to force some mistakes. Yeah, LSU, I guess the silver lining here is that they, on top of having the nation's leading offensive producer in Daniels, they also have a receiving core that includes the nation's leading in receiving yards, that is Malik Neighbors. So, I don't know. Him and Brian Thomas, I think they can get him over the hump, but I'm scared. I have to pick LSU here, but I am scared that Nick Saban talks a win into existence for the Crimson Tide here. And that'll bring us into the last game on our card this week. It is USC taking on Washington, ranked number 5, just outside the top 4 playoff spots here. Both teams struggling of late. Andy, who are you taking in this one?
Oh, man. I mean, Tom said it earlier. There won't be much defense played in this one. I mean, the USC defense is just, they stink. 230th in the country, giving up 439 yards per game. They gave up 49 points to fucking Cal last week. And, I will credit to Cal's coach for putting his nuts on the table and going for 2 in the win at the end there. But, oh, my God, like, their defense is just atrocious. I can't pick them to beat anybody that's worth a shit. Penix has a huge game. I think Williams probably has a decent game, too, but give me the Huskies.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, look, the Huskies survived Stanford last week, 9-point win there. They now have 15 straight wins. That's the second longest active winning streak among any FBS team, only second to Georgia. I read a stat. These teams played since 2019, which is very, very interesting to me. So USC 7-2 here. They lost 2 out of the last 3. Notre Dame and Utah. And you mentioned they beat Cal by 1 point. Penix Jr. has so many weapons, man. Adunze, Poe, McMillan, Jack Westover at tight end. USC has nothing on defense. They got guys that can get sacks, but I mean, they have no pass coverage. There's not a single guy in their secondary. I mean, Kalen Bullock has looked okay at times, but 3 of their 4 leading tacklers are safeties. That should tell you something. Give me Washington.
Yeah, I'm going Washington as well here. Both teams, like I said, have struggled. This is a showdown of 2 quarterbacks who have just kind of watched their Heisman hopeful dreams kind of fade a little bit. One more than the other. I think Penix is probably still in the mix, despite 2 straight weeks of, very tough struggles, we'll say. Williams is completely out of it, in my opinion, at this point, with those losses. But the most concerning thing to me, and apparently to everyone here, is that USC defense. Alex Grinch, I think, just needs to go. I don't know. I don't know why he's really there with the amount of points that they give up. The Grinch defense gives up 49 points per game. Give up 49 points to Cal, which is good now for 41.8 points per game given up. I know it's kind of like the Big 12. They're not known for their defense, but I mean, if you told me to pick a team in the Pac-12 that's giving up 42 points per game on defense, I mean, they wouldn't have been my last pick. But I mean, there's 8 other teams that I would have picked before them, and I wouldn't believe you that you could give up 42 points a game and still have as many wins as they do. So I guess that's a plus on their side. But yeah, that's good for 111th in all of FBS, and they also allow an average of 421 yards per game. And 32.6 points per game. Those are good for 109th in the FBS. So I don't care what you do on offense. If your defense is that non-existent and you go up against a solid team all around in Washington, I don't know how you can win this game unless Washington just completely blows up, or maybe USC has some secret manifesto kid that they're going to pull out for this game who's been spying on Washington here. But yeah, we know what Penix Jr. can do, and he's got one of the deepest receiving corps in the country. Adunze, you already mentioned him. Jalen Polk, 2 of the top 3 wideouts in the country, probably, alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. So I'm picking Washington to win this game. I kind of agree with Tom in that this might not even be on my TV because it just might be really ugly football. But on the other hand, like you said, we might see like 150 points in this game, triple overtime. So maybe that's worth keeping an eye, at least on the scoreboard late. But that is going to wrap up our games of the week. It'll wrap up our Week 10 show. Hit the links down in the description for Mr. Andy Hopper on my left, Mr. Tom Scavetta on my right. Give us a like and a follow if you made it this far. Enjoy the action for Week 10 this weekend, and we'll see everybody next week for Week 11.